you doing, everybody? So this week we worked on putting some fans into a wonderful porch here. It's enclosed. These two fans right here were purchased by Uncle Ruben down over this way. He wanted two fans in here. He was initially thinking 3 fans, 2 fans. He wasn't quite sure, but he wanted more than 1 fan. So what we used here was some 14.2 or 14.3 gauge wiring. And we went and ran it through some 3¼ inch conduit, and we have our fans powered up, and it's all coming off of a previously installed light switch for a light that was outside here prior to him enclosing all this. So we're going to show you guys how to do that today.
Okay, so first thing that we're looking at is trying to figure out exactly where we want to put our fans. Basically what I did here is I counted my ceiling joists and pretty much divided that into where I want 2 different fans to go. We are going to be powering off of this one light fixture we have here. It's already powered from a switch that's inside of the house, and we're going to be using this wiring. We're going to remove this fixture and use this wiring to power up the fans. Okay, we removed the light fixture, and we can see inside the box now that we have 14.2 wiring. This is perfect, so we know we're going to run off some 14.2 new wiring when we start putting it in through the conduit. So now we need to make a measurement to how far or where we want the actual middle of this roof to go, so we have that actually lined up with each other. Okay, so all I'm doing here is, if you see this box, it's already placed into the stucco, so I'm not going to want to remove that. All I'm doing is putting some anchors around it. They sell a box that has 4 tabs, 2 on each side, that they extend out, and you can place some screws in there. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to put a box over this original box and extend it out so that we can wire from inside. Okay, so you can see that this is the box that we're using. This is a weatherproof box. However, it is not exactly needed for this area of work. Everything matches up. So I want to make sure that everything stays the same color, everything's the same material type, and that's what we're going to be using. So you can see that I'm anchoring this box over the original box, and later on we'll come with some caulking and fill that in, so you'll never even know that there was a box there that originally existed. Okay, so as you can see here, all I'm using is my drill to drill the screws into the anchors through the box, the extended brackets that the box has. My recommendation is make sure that you get yourself a magnetic bit. It helps tremendously when doing any work. Doesn't matter what type of work you're doing. Get some magnetic bits, and it holds the screw to the bit without falling, or the chances of it falling are less likely, at least. So just keep in mind the box that we're using here is for outlets. However, we're not going to use it for that, and we're going to cover it with a faceplate in the end so that you can't see the wiring. Okay, so here is our adapter that we were originally talking about. So our adapter is going to go into this box that has threading. Here's our 90 that we were talking about as well. So the 90-degree turn is going to go up against that ceiling joist just to go in the direction that we want the fans to go. So when you're measuring this, make sure that you have to measure your cut for your pipe. So make sure that you place your 90 where you want it, and measure between the adapter and that coupling that's around the 90. Make sure you measure inside of that, because the piping is going in there. If you measure it too short, it's obviously going to be too short of a cut. So that's what we're doing here, is we made our measurements, and I'm measuring from inside the coupling as well as inside the threading, the adapter. So that way I know exactly how long the new piping I'm going to be putting in there is going to be. Don't make it too short, don't make it too long. So we brought the pipe down, and we are going to make a cut using the measuring tape and cutting the measurement we made that was between the threading hole and the coupling hole. So my recommendation is about halfway through the coupling, so that you know that the piping is going to go up. If you need to make any additional cuts because it's too long, then you're going to have to make your cuts. But it's better to make a cut from something long than something short. Okay, so all I'm doing here is cutting this pipe. to the measurement that I made. You can use different types of tools to do this. Some people use saws, some people use cutoff tools. This tool right here is just so much easier, I think, to use. It's a lot less of a mess to pick up. All you're really picking up in the end result is the piece of pipe that you cut off. You're not looking at any other material to pick up. Cutoff tools also can possibly leave a jagged edge. This cuts a smooth edge. So just keep that in mind when you want to use this. Okay, once you make your cut, you're going to want to verify that you made the exact measurement and exact cut to where you want. Just use your tape measure, look it over. Once you know that you're satisfied with the cut, we're going to go ahead and take this back up to where the 90 degree is. Okay, once you have your cut, we're going to get our 90 and our cut, and we're going to take it up to the box that we were working on. My recommendation in these type of jobs is getting some sort of vise or something that's going to hold your pipe, especially when you're making your cuts with long pieces of pipe. It helps a lot so that you're not making diagonal cuts and stuff like that. Especially when you're working this job by yourself, you need an extra hand. That vise is going to act as an extra hand. You can get it done without the vise, but it just makes the job so much simpler. So what I'm putting up here now is the cut piece to include an offset. Now the reason I have an offset is because the box that was originally placed there is not completely lined up with the ceiling joists above it. So I had to put an offset, and again, these are very cheap products as well. You can see the offset on top of the box, and it leans towards the left. Then the small cut that we have, and then the 90. So the offset goes into the threading, then there's a coupling, and then that piping goes into the coupling and into the 90, and the 90 turns. And that's where we're at so far. You're going to see that this is the ceiling joist that I want to use in order to go down and run my pipe against that. Okay, once you have your the pipe up to where you want it to go, you're going to feed the wire into the box, up the 90 and out about the 10-foot pole that we're using here. So just keep in mind that you're not hooking up right now, and you want to make sure that towards the end of the project is when you're actually hooking the wires up to make it hot. So everything's dead right now. Okay, so all I'm using right here is what's called a step bit. So these step bits run maybe around $20 for a pack or a set, and what they are used for is to make holes bigger. So this box cover that we have here that we're going to be using as a three-way, it has a half-inch knockout. They didn't sell 3/4-inch knockouts that I would need for this project. So I have a step bit, and the step bit's going to make that hole from a half-inch into 3/4-inch. So just keep in mind this stuff gets really hot when you're using it. Use some gloves, and just be careful with this. Now you can definitely use a vise to be able to do this, or hold it down with your foot. I've learned in my experience using my drill box has a perfect place for this square box to fit in, and it won't move left or right. I do have to hold it down with my foot, but this works for me. Find things that work for you, and you'll never have any issues with knowing what you can use and what you can't use. Just keep in mind that when using this step bit, it's going to get your box very hot, so whatever you touch against it is going to either melt or burn. Okay, so before we put that cover on, we made an additional knockout hole on the side of this box. This is going to be our transition for one fan to go one way and the other to go the other way. You can see that there's the wire coming out of there, and I used the lock nut against that the threaded adapter on that portion. So we have our wire up to this point now. Now we need to figure out exactly where we're going left and right with these fans. We want to figure out what the measurement is and where the person wants the actual fans. Okay, so prior to making any more measurements left or right, we're going to use a spade bit. Now the spade bit's going to be used to bore through this wood. So basically the ceiling joists are going to have some holes running through them for the wire and the conduit. So I'm going to find the hole in the middle of the box that already has a knockout, and all we're going to do is just drill that spade bit into the wood in order for it to come out to the other side. And that's how we're going to be running our conduit, and that's how we're going to be running our wire. You want to make sure that you get yourself a good power drill for this type of project. The reason being is you have some thick wood that you're going to be going into, and the spade bit will work if you have a good drill. So all I'm doing is going up and down, left and right. If you were just to go in with a spade bit, a straight shot, with this thickness of wood, you're going to have a tough time. I don't care what it looks like inside this box. All I care about is getting through. So go left and right, up and down, and you'll see that it's going to get through eventually, and it's a lot quicker than just trying to go straight shot through. Okay, so for this portion of the project, what we're doing is we're making some measurements. So you take your tape measure and you go to the end of your ceiling joist to where it meets with that beam, and you measure it to the middle of that hole that we just bored out, basically the knockout that's in the middle of that box. Let's say, for example, that this was 92 inches from the end of that ceiling joist to the middle of that box. Well, what we're going to do here is transfer that 92 inches over to the last ceiling joist that you're working with. Not the last ceiling joist on the roof or the ceiling, but the last ceiling joist that you're actually working with. You're going to transfer that number over to there. So if we have 92 inches from the original marking we made, the original measurement, we're going to transfer that 92 inches to this last ceiling joist that we're working with. So you can see my chalk line hanging underneath that box. All I did was put a temporary screw to hold that chalk line up. It does not need to be deeply into the wood, but just make sure it's not loose enough that the chalk line is going to fall just hanging there or when you're going to use it. Alright, so all we're going to do now is get your chalk line, and the reason behind all this is you want to make sure that everything is perfectly straight when you're laying your conduit. When you're looking up, you want to make sure that everything looks straight, everything looks flushed, nothing's going too far left, nothing's going too far right. So the chalk line is going to do this for us. So we have our marking right where that screw is at 92 inches, basically right underneath that hole in the box. All you're going to do is snap a line at the other ceiling joists where you mark 92 inches, and that's going to be our marking for all the holes that we're going to be boring into the ceiling joist. Once you get that side down with the chalk line, you're going to do the exact same thing over on the other side. So I know one fan's going to be going left of that box and one fan's going to be going right of that box. So we have our measurements, or at least our chalk line, down to where we want it on the left side. Now we have to go to the right side. It's the exact same steps you're going to be taking. Like I said, whatever inches you mark on your measurement is what's going to be used. I'm using 92 inches as an example right now. Don't just make 92 inches on your measurement. This is an example right now what I'm talking about. So let's say I have 92 inches on that box. I've already made my chalk line on one side. I'm just transferring that 92 inches to the other ceiling joist, the last one that we're going to be using. And I'm going to do the exact same process. I'm leaving my chalk line right where it's at, and I'm going to be pulling that chalk line over to the last marking I'm making. I'm going to snap a line, and every single chalk line should hit underneath every single ceiling joist. Once you're done with those chalk line marks, just roll it up. We're not going to be using this again. What I'm going to do now is take a square of some sort, something that you can make to make a measurement from the bottom of the ceiling joist to the middle of that hole that we bored out inside of that box. So let's say that hole is 3.5 inches from the bottom of that ceiling joist to the middle of that hole. What we're going to do now is go to each and every single chalk line that is on our ceiling joist and mark where 3.5 inches is up. That way now we have an exact measurement from left to right and from top to bottom. So now once we make our measurement at 3.5 inches on each ceiling joist, you're going to mark a little dot or some sort of circle so you know where you're going to be boring into. So as you can see, what I'm using here is just a carpenter square. I'm just going to go ahead and make my markings. 3.5 inches up, if that's what the measurement was. It could be 4 inches, it could be 2 inches. I'm not sure what it was. All you want to do is make sure that whenever you're doing this, you're not going too far down on the bottom of that ceiling joist, because when you're boring this hole, you don't want to risk the chance of it ripping the bottom of that ceiling joist, and now you're out of a ceiling joist and it just looks horrible. So make sure wherever you're boring into, you're going high enough, somewhat middle of the ceiling joist, if not just a little lower. You don't want to go too high. You never want to run your piping right up against that plywood. So just make sure that you're at a happy medium somewhat with this ceiling joist. So again, all I'm doing here is just making my markings on each and every single ceiling joist now that I am going to be boring into. So with these measurements, you can use some sort of speed square, carpenter's square, or a tape measure. My recommendation is obviously just makes the job easier is to use something that has a flat surface. So speed square or carpenter's square, so much easier than rather than just using a tape measure. That way you know you're going exactly straight up with the chalk line. Alright, so the piece of material that we decided to use is a ceiling brace. Basically, this is what's going to be used to hold the fan up. It extends from, I believe it's 16 to 24 inches. And here's the hardware that comes in the box. Doesn't look like anything too hard, too difficult to use. Just make sure that when you're putting this backing onto the circular portion of this, that you do it when you have your bracing to connect it together. Otherwise, you're going to be too tight and it's not going to fit. So what this is required to do is the wire is going to go through the top of this hole, of this bracket, into this hole, which is not big enough for the insulation to fit in, unless you were to take the insulation off and have 3 exposed wires now. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our step bit, and we're going to make this just a little bit bigger. Okay, as you can see, the arm portions in the vise, I'm just giving it a little push with the step bit just to make it a little bit bigger, you know, for the insulation to fit in. And once you have that hole big enough for the insulation to fit in, it's ready to go. Okay, so the portion that we're at now is putting this brace up, the arm that we just bored out, the one that we made the hole a little bit bigger with. We're going to put that up against the chalk line. There's a triangular shape underneath this brace that goes against the ceiling joist, and underneath it you'll see a triangular shape that's going to be angled off right where that chalk line is. So you can see all our holes that we bored out in the ceiling joist, and all we're doing is lining this brace up with that chalk line and drilling in with the screws that were provided. We're drilling into the holes against this ceiling joist. Okay, so keep in mind that this package comes with only 2 screws. Each arm has 4 holes for screws, so they should have gave us 8 screws altogether. They only gave us 4. So I put 2 additional screws on the bottom just to give that extra hold. Okay, so you can see that one of the arms is already up. We're not going to fully put the other portion on yet. All we're doing now is between our ceiling joists, you see a spot where there's 2 holes that are bored. We're going to be putting our pipe in there. The conduit between this. Now, what you have to remember is that one piece of conduit is not going to fit perfectly into there without bending it somehow. So this has a little bit of bend, but not enough to be able to fit through there. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a measurement. We're going to measure between the ceiling joists exactly how far it is, the span that we need, and you're going to make your marking and your cut. Once you have this portion cut, you're gonna check your measurement again to make sure that everything's measured to or cut to where you measured between the ceiling joists, and then you're gonna take the half of that. This is what's gonna make it look like a nice finished cut. Half of that marking. So let's say that this was 16 inches. Let's just say, well, half your marking is going to be 8 inches. So cut your piece at whatever the half of that piping is. And when you have that done, what we're going to do is we're going to connect one piece into the hole that we bored, and we're going to put a coupling on the other end, and then connect that other piece of piping to that coupling and the other hole. So you'll see exactly what I'm doing here. So putting this piping into the hole. Now it's obviously not a full length all the way across, and again, the reason is because it's almost impossible to do it to force that piece of pipe in there. So you put a coupling on one end, and then you're going to put the other piece of piping into the other hole and then connect it together with that coupling. Okay, you can see this portion right here that I'm doing is nearly the end result of this one portion between two ceiling joists. Just keep in mind that you're not going to make every single cut the same. These ceiling joists may be different in span. So you may have one that's 22 inches, you may have one that's 24 inches, you may have one that's 22 and a half. You never know, so make sure that you mark between each and every single ceiling joist that you're going to be putting the conduit in. Okay, all I'm doing here now is just cutting off that excess wire that was coming out of the original pipe we put in. In this box, we're going to be connecting all our wires together. Okay, I'm far from being the best artist in the world, but I try to draw this out so you guys understood this. In our 14-2 wiring, we're going to have our black, white, and copper wire. Our black is our hot, our white is our neutral, and our copper is our ground. So blue in this picture itself is going to be your white wire, your neutral. So you can see that everything is going to be connected together. One coming in from the pipe, one going left, one going right. This is exactly how it's going to be for each and every single hookup. Okay, so all I'm doing here is once we cut our wire, I'm going to feed one wire going to one fan, and I'm going to make sure that I have another wire going to another fan. So it's hard to explain how to do this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to try my best here to explain this. So you have this one wire coming out of this piping that we originally put in. If you can imagine, see the one with the straps on there, that's the wire that we already have coming in. So I need to feed another wire going out to the fan. So the other wire is going to go through that hole that we bored out inside that box. It's going to go that way. So the end wire of the one that we're putting into the new bored hole is going to get attached to this wire that I'm stripping right now. So remember, strip your wires black, white. Copper obviously doesn't get stripped because there's no insulation around it. So once you have those stripped, you're going to be able to connect the new wire that you're going to be running to the other fan together. Don't put any wire nuts on this quite yet because there's still another wire that you need to hook up to go to the opposite fan. So you have one wire coming in this conduit, one wire going out the conduit we just put in, and one wire that's going to be going through the conduit we have yet to put in. So keep in mind that this job right here is, you want to make sure that this is done correctly. If you don't know how to do this correctly, make sure you call an electrician to help you out with this. So all I'm doing here is just twisting these wires together to give it a nice tight hold. Make sure that you're using wire nuts that are big enough to fit 3 wires inside of it, not just 2. Okay, once you have that wire fed through the new conduit we just put in, you're going to see it sticking up above the brace, and we're going to go through that hole that we made bigger with the step bit. Now you can see that the wire is going to be nice and tight up on top, and it's going to be running through that arm brace up on the bottom. So here's our piece of 14-2 wire that we have. Remember, 14-2 wire is for the lighting fixtures. So make sure you pick up 14-2. And we have enough wire in here that's going to be hanging out the middle of that circular box that we're going to be installing in a bit. So you can see this portion of the project here. We have the wiring coming through the hole. We're going to be able to fix that up a little bit later on. We have our bracing on and the wire that's coming through the circular portion right in the middle so that no wires are getting bent. And we have it coming through, so ready to get that one hooked up to the fan. Now it's time to work on the other portion for the other run for the fan to be on the right side. Okay, so now we have our cover that we originally bored out bigger with the step bit. We have our adapter with a threaded end going into it and our lock nut on the other side. We went ahead and attached this new wiring to all angles of the wiring that was coming in from the long pipe, the one going to the left, and now this new wiring going to the right. So everything is now attached together and is coming out of that one threaded adapter itself. Now it's time to put all the pieces of conduit through the new holes that we bored out, and let's see what our run looks like in the end. Here you can see the two pipings, the two pieces of conduit that we placed in with the couplings in the middle. Everything looks even and flushed. We have our wire running through it, and it's going to be coming out on the other side. So this is how we made our three-way. One coming from the box that was originally powered, one going to the left to the fan, and one going to the right to the other fan. And now we have our 14-2 wire sticking out, ready for the other bracing to be put on. Okay, so the way that this bracket works is it comes with two arms, one portion that goes between them, and then your round box that's going to be used to be able to place the fan in. So what you want to do is make sure that you put that middle adapter piece in the middle of those brackets before you put the holes in. The reason being is it's going to now learn the thickness of those braces. If you were to put that adapter on the back of that circular portion before putting those braces in, you have the ability to tighten it too much, so when you finally put the that circular portion into the actual bracing, it's not going to fit because it's going to be too tight. So it's going to learn its thickness here, and once you put those screws in, it's going to, and you can put it as tight as you want on this end, because once it learns that thickness, or basically the measurement of it, it won't fail you. Basically, it's going to fit in perfectly fine. So again, using the screws that were provided with it, find your holes, make your measurements, and go ahead and screw those screws in. Okay, all I'm doing here is just hand tightening these screws into that adapter piece that goes on the back. Make sure that they're nice and tight. You're not going to have to do this part again. You don't want any future problems with these screws if they're not tight enough. Again, the screws that come with this for the ending portions that go into the ceiling joist, they only give you 4. They should have gave you 8, but unfortunately they only give us 4. So I had to make sure that I put some additional wood screws in there. And you can see how easy that comes off the braces. So now we are going to go ahead and put that ending piece on. And as you can see here, we have it on. And everything is attached inside of it now. We have our wire running from the top portion into the hole that we had to make bigger with the step bit again. And we ran it through the top side, and you can see that it runs on the bottom top through that brace and into the circular hole and into the box. So now we're ready to hook up our fans. Whichever fans you decided to get, we're ready to hook them up now. Okay, so I skipped the portion of how to put your fan together. The reason being is there are hundreds and thousands of fans out there that it would be a waste of time for me to show you how to put a fan together. Just follow the instructions and you should be able to put your own fan together. Like I said, every type is different. Every installation is different with the fans. The only thing that you need to know about is how to hook up the wire to the fan. And you're just going to be attaching your hot wire to the hot wire on the fan, your neutral to the neutral wire on the fan, and your ground to the ground wire in the fan. That's all you basically have to know of. And just knowing how to install your own type of fan, whichever one you decided to buy, well, that's the one you're going to be installing. Okay, so the type of fan that he decided to buy was the Home Decorations Collection. It's a 52-inch indoor ceiling fan. You can find it indoor and outdoor. This one's all closed up on the outside patio, so he's alright with going with the indoor one. These are the pieces that are to a fan. It's not that hard. Just follow the instructions. There's always a manual inside of each box, and it's going to be they're pretty simple to put together. This one exactly that he purchased was a remote control fan with an LED lighting. So again, doesn't matter what type of fan you get. It could have an LED lighting. It can have no remote at all. It can use the one that has the bulbs. Everything's going to be powered the same exact way. Doesn't matter which type of fan you got. So now we have 2 fans up in the ceiling, and we are ready to test them out. Alright, so now that we're on the final steps here, we should have everything installed, and we're going to be testing it out with the remote control. So this remote control that we had here has the ability to power both up at the same time. But if you program them the right way, then you have the ability to run each one off of its own individual remote, basically. So that's what he wanted here. So we programmed them so that they both went to their own individual fans, and he has 2 remotes. So just in case he only wants one fan on at one time, or he wants one light on at one time, then he's going to be able to power one fan at one time. If he wants to run both of them at the same time, both LEDs running at one time, or both fans running at one time, he has the ability to do that with 2 different remotes now. So, however you decide to program it, however you decide to install it, that's your preference. Okay, so what he was testing out was to make sure that one remote does not interfere with either fan, and it just is specifically designed to function one fan. So he picked up the other remote and managed to turn on the other fan with it, and everything looks like it's running right. No shaking, no wobbling, and each fan is going to be working just how it should. So he's trying the light fixtures to make sure that they work, and the LEDs turn on, look great, very powerful, and can't wait to see what this thing looks like at night. So now we're going to take a walk through into a house so you can see exactly where it's being powered from. So we have a switch here that was originally powering the outside fixture. The outside fixture we took off, and we used that wiring to be able to run the wiring through this conduit for the new fans that we put in. So you can see the box that we put in here. It's an outlet box that also has a cover. So you cannot see the exposed wires from inside, and everything just looks flushed. We have our offset running to a piece of pipe, to our 90, to our conduit that we put up, and we have it strapped in with the conduit straps. We have it going to the box, our 3-way box that we made, wiring going in and wiring going out 2 different ways. So hopefully this job right here is some sort of learning experience at least. There's millions of ways how to do this. This is my way that I felt comfortable with, and my way that I knew how to do it. So hopefully that this project, if you have no idea what you're walking into, gives you some sort of insight on how easy this can be. Again, everything is just step by step. You can't do one step until you do one step before that. So just be patient with this project. And in the end result, you can put whatever final touches you want to this.
Alright everybody, thanks for watching this video. Like I said, hopefully this helps you out in a certain way if you're trying to install some fans. Every fan has their different installation, but mostly similar to each other with wiring and stuff like that. Just follow your instructions to whatever fan you're getting, and make sure that you're taking the right screws out, putting them back to where they need to go. Hold on to them, don't lose them, don't kick them around. These screws are very small with these fixtures, and you just don't want to lose things. So hopefully this helps you out, get some sort of general idea of what you can do in order to install some fans in the outside patio or under a roof of any sort outside or even inside. This is basically new installation here, using what we're using here, or the new installation, the brackets for the fans. But hopefully everything we did here looks all right to you guys, and I know it sure does look all right to me. So thanks for watching. Bye bye.
Listen.